today we're going to finish off the Lotus Sutra as far as the 28 chapters are concerned, and in regard to the orally transmitted teachings by Nichiren. And so that will be chapter 27, Former Affairs of King Wonderful Adornment, on page 187. And chapter 28, Encouragements of the Bodhisattva Universal Worthy, on page 189. But I got a lot of reading. I got to read like 12 pages. So let me go. I'm not going to go crazy on the dictionary definitions, but there are a few things. Number one of the numbers that will be discussed and broken down by Nichiren in the, what is it, the Fugen? At any rate, the universal worthy. Yeah, he's going to break down the 84,000. So let me start by the number 84,000, because you've heard 80. Isn't it kind of coincidental? You've heard 84,000 as a number used in several instances as it relates to the sutra. Okay, so 84,000, a figure used. So don't take it so literally. It's not 84,000. It's a lot.
Oh,
okay.
I thought it was
okay. 84,000. That's why I'm reading it from the dictionary. So nobody thinks that everything is 84,000 of it, whatever. That's some sort of mystic number. No. 84,000. Oh, well, it might be mystic, but it's again, it's a figure used in Buddhist texts to represent a large number or a quantity that is immeasurable or all-inclusive. So it's way beyond a concept of 84,000. 84,000 of something is like, that's within our realm, right? We have 84,000 pieces of inventory of an item in an inventory in a warehouse or something like that. It's when it's used in Buddhism, it's to express something that is everything. It's everything. Okay. It is often abbreviated as 80,000 instead of 84,000. Some examples of terms containing this expression are 84,000 earthly desires, 84,000 diseases, the 84,000 stupas built by King Ashoka, and the Buddha's 84,000 teachings. Okay? So that's what I wanted to explain to you specifically more than anything else. When they refer to the Buddha's 84,000 teachings, they're not talking about 84,000 as a number. They're talking about all of the whole compilation of his works.
It sounds like similar, like 3,000 rounds.
Yes, but again, that's Tentai. Now this is from Sanskrit. Okay, this is from prior to. Yeah. No, you're going to find that they parallel completely. Okay, that's why there's validity in the whole Tentai breakout. Okay, because it's just an extension of the concepts. It's not a reinvention of the concepts. Okay. All right. So then the next thing is that we're doing the chapter 27 is the former affairs of King Wonderful Adornment. So let me go to F, which is right here. Former affairs of King Wonderful Adornment. Okay, chapter in the dictionary on page 211. It says, former affairs of Bodhisattva, I'm doing Medicine King instead of Medicine Adornment, pardon me, on page 230. The former affairs of King Wonderful Adornment chapter, abbreviated as King Wonderful Adornment chapter, the 27th chapter of the Lotus Sutra, in which Shakyamuni relates the story of King Wonderful Adornment. In the remote past, Shakyamuni says there was a Buddha named Cloud, Thunder, Sound, Constellation, King, Flower, Wisdom, who expounded the Lotus Sutra. So once again, we get another example of the fact that the Lotus Sutra is not being preached for the first time as Shakyamuni is preaching it on, at Eagle Peak. Everybody's with me on that, right? Yeah. Okay. The teaching of the Lotus Sutra in the Lotus Sutra itself is referred to as a teaching that has existed for an innumerable number of eons. Okay, an incalculable amount of time. This goes all the way back to, my goodness, never disparaging people. Again, it's not talking about this world. It's talking about other worlds that the Lotus Sutra was preached in. Okay, you can't have a time in history that precedes ancient history okay? Not that we would know anything about, okay, or that there people would be being quoted from, all right? You with me? Because all these stories come out of the Lotus Sutra. They're not actual events of hey, this happened in this village in India, or this happened in this village in India. Do you understand what I'm trying to explain? Hello? Everybody's with me on that, right? Okay, so in which Shakyamuni relates the story of King Wonderful Adornment. In the remote past, Shakyamuni says, in the remote past, okay? So he's talking about before Earth has formulated itself. Shakyamuni says there was a Buddha named Cloud, Thunder, Sound, Constellation, King, Flower, Wisdom, who expounded the Lotus Sutra. The king's two sons, Pure Storehouse and Pure Eye, begged their mother, Pure Virtue, to come with them to listen to the Buddha. She replied that they must first persuade their father, a devout believer in Brahmanism, and suggested that they perform magical feats to demonstrate to him the power of Buddhism. They then displayed transcendental powers before the king, awakening in him a desire to hear the Buddha's teaching. Together with his wife, two sons, ministers, and attendants, King Wonderful Adornment went to make offerings to the Buddha, Cloud, Thunder, Sound, Constellation, King, Flower, Wisdom, and received from him a prophecy of Buddhahood, just like Shakyamuni laid out prophecies of enlightenment to his disciples, right? In the first part, remember? Okay. The king proclaimed that his sons were what Buddhism calls his good friends. Okay, so what's a good friend in Buddhism? Somebody that encourages you in faith practice and along the way, okay, toward Buddhahood. Somebody that encourages you along the path of Buddhahood. Okay, so Shoju could be considered trying to be a good friend under the appropriate circumstances. Do you understand? All right, so his good friends, because they had led him to Buddhism. Then he, his wife and sons, and his entire retinue renounced the secular world and became the Buddha's disciples. In the concluding part of this chapter, King Wonderful Adornment is identified as the present Bodhisattva flower Virtue, who is among the assembly at Eagle Peak. Queen Pure Virtue as the Bodhisattva light shining adornment marks, and Pure Storehouse and Pure Eye as the Bodhisattva's Medicine King and Medicine Superior. So we already know about Medicine King, right? He's been mentioned several times. Okay. His brother, which in a past life was named something else, he and both of them had two different names. Again, so that's them in a past life. Medicine King and now Medicine Superior. Those are the two brothers of this particular king. In the words and phrase of the Lotus Sutra, Tentai tells the following story about the past relationship between Wonderful Adornment and his wife and sons. Everybody's with me, right? Okay. In the remote past, there were 4 religious practitioners. Now again, they manifested later as a family. Okay? But initially in the remote past, they were not related as family members. There were 4 religious practitioners carrying out austerities in search of the way. They found themselves hindered, however, by the daily routines of cooking and cleaning. To assist the practice of the other 3, one of them abandoned his austerities and took all those chores upon himself. One of them, it doesn't qualify which one it was. The other 3 continued their practice and obtained the way to Buddhahood. But he did not, because he couldn't practice as they did, right? He was doing all the stuff that sustained life in the 9 worlds. As his karmic reward for having supported the others' practice, however, he was born as King Wonderful Adornment. Okay, and the other 3 were reborn as his wife and sons to lead him to the Buddha way, since he didn't get his chance when he had served them, okay, to keep them going while all 4 of them were you understand, common mortals, okay, and repay their debt to him. All right, so you with me on that? All right, then we're going to go to the other thing that we're going to read today is the encouragements of Bodhisattva Universal Worthy. Okay, this is on page 157. It's chapter 28. Abbreviated as Universal Worthy Chapter or Encouragements Chapter, the chapter Bodhisattva Universal Worthy, the 28th chapter and last chapter of the Lotus Sutra. In the first part of the chapter, Bodhisattva Universal Worthy arrives from the land of the Buddha king above jeweled dignity and virtue in the east to pay homage to Shakyamuni Buddha and to hear him preach. He says to Shakyamuni, world honored one, when I was in the land of the Buddha king above jeweled dignity and virtue, from far away, I heard the Lotus Sutra being preached in this Sahe world. In company with this multitude of immeasurable, boundless hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, millions of bodhisattvas, I have come to listen to and accept this and accept the sutra. I beg that the world honored one will preach it for us. He asks how one can acquire the Lotus Sutra after the Buddha's death. And in answer to this, Shakyamuni explains 4 conditions for doing so. To be protected and kept in mind by the Buddhas, to plant the roots of virtue, to enter the stage where one is sure of reaching enlightenment, and to arouse the determination to save all living beings. Bodhisattva Universal Worthy then vows to protect the Lotus Sutra and all those who embrace it in the evil written latter day of the law. Shakyamuni briefly explains the blessings obtained through the practice of the sutra and through the act of offering alms to and praising its practitioners. He says, therefore, Universal Worthy, if you see a person who accepts and upholds this sutra, you should rise and greet him from afar, showing him the same respect you would a Buddha. Overjoyed to have heard the Lotus Sutra, all the assembly bow in obeisance to him and depart. In the Lotus Sutra, okay, so, and that's the end, right? So this is the last chapter. This is all happening in chapter 28. Overjoyed to have heard the Lotus Sutra, like the last crew that get there or something. All the assembly bow in obeisance to him and depart. In the Lotus Sutra of the Wonderful Law, Kumarajiva's translation of the sutra, this is the final chapter. But in the other versions, the Lotus Sutra of the Correct Law, translated by Dharmaraksha, and the Supplemental Lotus Sutra of the Wonderful Law by Junagupta and Dramagupta, the entrustment chapter appears at the end of the 27 chapter sutra. Okay, that's that for that. Let's get into the OTT. We'll start on page 187 with chapter 27, Former Affairs of King Wonderful Adornment, right? There are only 3 important points. That's why we're doing 2 of these this week, all right, to finish it up. Point 1, concerning King Wonderful Adornment. Guess who King Wonderful Adornment really is in the latter day of law? Same as about 5 other things I've mentioned so far. Us. Okay? All right, so concerning King Wonderful Adornment, Words and Phrases, Volume 10 says the words wonderful adornment refers to the way in which the benefits of the wonderful law adorn the various sense organs. And again, when he says words and phrases, he's talking about Tentai says that, okay? The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, Nichiren says, the word wonderful indicates the benefits of the wonderful law. The various sense organs are the 6 sense organs, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, which are purified in our process of practice, right? Which is what we have to accomplish in order to attain Buddhahood, correct? All right, so the name Wonderful Adornment is thus indicating the way in which the benefits of the wonderful law are used to adorn the 6 sense organs. Do you understand what he's saying there? They're a manner of showing the effect of faith and practice. Okay? I'll say it again. The name Wonderful Adornment is thus indicating the way in which the benefits of the wonderful law are used to adorn the 6 sense organs. Okay, do we utilize the adornment of the six sense organs with the state of Buddhahood for the sake of being cool, being better looking, being better than others? No, it's to make everybody equal to ourselves, correct? All right, so this is the record of the orally transmitted, the word wonderful. That's wonderful that we have that kind of compassion. That's our motivation for accomplishing this mission, okay, is to be living examples and to lead and guide others to the same benefit that we have been led to, all right? So he's saying, the record of the orally, this is page 187, the record of the orally transmitted teaching says the word wonderful indicates the benefits of the wonderful law. What are the benefits of the wonderful law? Buddhahood. And what does Buddhahood include? All manner of beneficial circumstances, the purification of your six sense organs. That's what allows you to be a Buddha, become a Buddha. So it was this process. As they were purified, you're getting closer to becoming a Buddha in your original form, or in your present form. Thank you. Okay. The various sense organs are the six sense organs: the eyes, ears, nose, body, tongue, body, and mind. The name wonderful adornment is thus indicating in which the benefits of the wonderful law are used to adorn the six sense organs. We are wonderfully adorned. All of us are wonderful adornment. Okay, I already told you that. I skipped ahead here. He's going to say that in a minute. In the latter day, we're all people that chant our King Wonderful Adornment. The point I'm trying to get you to understand is that the aspect that he's trying to qualify here is the fact that our karma actually colors who we are and what we're able to be. Okay? So, the name wonderful, and thus we are adorned with the capacity to achieve Buddhahood, to convey it to others, to be the Buddha in our present form. There's nothing greater than that. Okay? So, that's pretty powerful adornment. All right? Pardon me. Generally, what is he saying? Generally speaking, we may say the word wonderful stands for the truth of non-substantiality, because everything begins with the truth of non-substantiality. Okay, that's where we find the original state. The original state is in non-substantiality. Okay, it manifests as something else, but it's not the original state at that point. It's a manifestation of the original state. Do you understand? The original state of Myoho Renge exists as a law. It doesn't have a form. It doesn't have physical form, does it? Is a Myoho Renge man? Is there a Myoho Renge star? Is there a Myoho Renge? No, a law. Gravity doesn't have physical form. Laws don't have, the speed limit doesn't have a physical form. Okay, it exists. Right. It's tangible. It can be measured, but it doesn't have physical form. Do you follow? Yes. Everybody's with me, right? Okay. The word. Okay. So that wonderful stands for non-substantiality. Okay. The original state. While the word adornment stands for the truth of temporary existence. Now that's something that occurred as things compounded based on the simultaneity of cause and effect. And first of all, an environment had to become manifest, right? Couldn't just have people suddenly appear out of nowhere, or living beings appear out of nowhere with nothing to support them. So the process had to begin with some graduation of the development of worlds and environments, and then plants, and then animals, and then living beings that have the mind to conceive and perceive all of that. You with me?
Yes.
Okay, so the word adornment stands for the truth of temporary existence, which becomes everything that manifests in the Dharma realm. Everything in a manifest state in the entire Dharma realm is in a state of temporary existence. It will re-enter non-substantiality, and it will come back into temporary existence. Okay? And the fact that that occurs over and over and over again without cessation or change is why it's called the truth of the middle way. It is, in fact, not two different things. It is the same thing. That's Buddhahood. Perceiving that understanding that you are eternal exactly as you are, and so is everything else. Okay? That's why Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the secret ingredient. It's the secret solvent that dissolves all issues of objection or desire. Either way. That's why it's empowered, has a power to do that. Everybody's with me? All right. Are you sure you're all with me? Okay. All right. So now Nichiren and his followers who chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo are all of them King Wonderful Adornment, because we do that ourselves. All right? And it's a descriptive title rather than it is a name of something. Right. Okay? Point 2, on the passage, encountering the Buddha is as difficult ... as it is for a one-eyed turtle to encounter a floating log with a hole in it. All right? He goes straight into the record of the orally transmitted teaching, says the record. Now what does that mean to you up until this moment? What's the whole premise that comes to your mind, or what's the purpose of the story of this? What's the meaning of the story of the one-eyed turtle and the floating log? Huh? It's time, good fortune, cause and effect, karma. Okay. Correct teaching. Okay. But the thing that I'm trying to get to is the reality that it's more difficult to find the correct teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo than it is to find Buddhism. Okay?
Right.
Buddhism is all over the place. All kinds of incorrect Buddhism.
Right.
All right, all kinds of Buddhism that Nichiren is saying right here is actually slander. I've read it in this book many times.
Right.
I only say it because he's qualifying it as slander, not me. All right? So he says, encountering the Buddha is as difficult as it is for a one-eyed turtle to encounter a floating log with a hole in it. Let me see what he says. He says, the record of the orally transmitted teaching says there are two kinds of hole in a log, a small one and a large one. The small hole corresponds to the sutra teaching set forth by Shakyamuni Buddha during the first more than 40 years of his teaching practice. In other words, the provisional teachings, right? Okay. The large hole corresponds to the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra. Now, did he say, does it correspond, the large hole, does it correspond to the Lotus Sutra? No. He specifically says it corresponds to the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra, because the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra is what allows you to attain Buddhahood. Not that literal Lotus Sutra. It's a provisional teaching in the latter day of the law. Is everybody with me?
Yep.
That's something most people will miss. The large hole corresponds to the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra. Now when Nichiren and his followers chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra, they are like the one-eyed turtle encountering a large hole in a log. They can enter it, it fits them perfectly, they attain Buddhahood in their present form, exactly as they are. Not as a bigger turtle someday when they grow more. Now, they were never too, again, all right? No limitations. The one-eyed turtle stands for all living beings, which come in all different sizes, right? So it can't be one size log, one size hole. Okay, it's whether it's the correct teaching or the incorrect teaching for the age. For the age, they're both the same as far as being correct, but one is correct for a different time and one is correct for another. The one-eyed turtle stands for all living beings, and the floating log of sandalwood is the Lotus Sutra. And the floating log of sandalwood is the Lotus Sutra. This floating log with the large whole of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. The whole of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. So the log is the Lotus Sutra, the vehicle for the whole, okay? But it's not the log. It's the fact that there's a hole in the log, and that the hole in the log is what allows the turtle to have a place to fit and be comfy and safe, all right? So let me say that again, because you got to understand those three distinctions. The one-eyed turtle stands for all living beings. So this is something common to all living things.
Right.
And the floating log of sandalwood is the Lotus Sutra. Okay? This floating log with the large hole of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, not the small hole of the provisional teachings that exists in the vast sea of the sufferings of birth and death, is none other than the Lotus Sutra. Okay, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is inseparable from the Lotus Sutra, but it's the latter day of the law. And the correct sutra of the latter day is simply Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, even though that's where we divine from the depths of the 16th chapter, because it's not on the surface of the 16th chapter either. You will not find the words Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. In fact, you won't even read the words Myoho Renge-kyo as we pronounce them in any of the original copies when all this stuff is being done, because it's all in Chinese. All right? So, this floating log with the large hole of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo that exists in the vast sea of sufferings of birth and death is none other than the Lotus Sutra. Point 3, on the passage, these two sons have already offered alms to Buddhas equal in number to the sands of 100,000, 10,000 million nayudas of Ganges, thinking with compassion of living beings who embrace heretical or erroneous views and causing them to abide in correct views. Bottom of page 188. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says King Wonderful Adornment held erroneous views. You remember? His sons had to convince him, correct? Their mom told him, do a bunch of magic and shit and impress him, okay? To win him over, all right? King Wonderful Adornment held erroneous views. Understand that, right? So was he a true believer? Not initially. That's the point. His sons shakabuku him. Okay? He only begins because of what the sons revealed to him. Okay? So the record of the orally transmitted teaching says the King Wonderful Adornment held erroneous views. If I go back in the story, or if you even just read it from the synopsis, he had erroneous views. His sons had to shakabuku him. Okay? Mom said to do it. Okay? So, and that's why I said when the four individual people that were seeking Buddhahood, and one of them took care of the other three so they could achieve it, the one that became King Wonderful Adornment was the one that helped them the other three achieve Buddhahood. The other three became his wife and his two boys, who did shakabuku him. That's the whole thing. You can't view it as I'm a king, so I'm at the top of the. It's your connection with the Gohonzon is really what's reflected. So he says, okay. King Wonderful Adornment held erroneous views, but through benefits conferred by the teaching and persuasion of his two sons, these erroneous views were refuted and changed into correct views. Okay? This is what great concentration and insight, the Makashikan Volume 1 means when it says what was extreme and erroneous has all been transformed and corrected, and there's an asterisk there. So we go down here to the bottom. It says the text states literally, what is extreme and erroneous is all that is in the middle way and correct. Hence, there is no Buddhist way to practice. There is no Buddha way to practice. Now that the king has adopted, because again, what's the whole point of Buddhahood? Realizing that you already are the Buddha, not discovering or realizing the things that you need to do to become the Buddha. Okay? So that's why it's saying What was extreme and erroneous has been reformed and corrected, because all that needed to be corrected was to perceive it correctly. The incorrect element was the perception, not the aspect itself. Okay, you with me? What text states, what is extreme and erroneous is all that is is all as it is in the middle way and correct. Hence, there is no Buddha way to practice. Now that the king has adopted correct views, what was extreme and erroneous is now the middle way and correct. It transforms, it flips. Greed, anger, and foolishness flip into Dharma, nature, emancipation, and wisdom, right? It all flips. We don't replace any of this. It doesn't suddenly come from somewhere and it wasn't there all along. Everything was already there all along, okay? There are no ingredients that are floating around waiting to come into play here. Do you understand? Everybody's with me? Okay, great. I'm so glad to know that. All right, finishing this then. Pardon me. We're still on still on 27. Now, all living beings in this country of Japan today hold erroneous views that are comparable to King Wonderful Adornment. And Nichiren and his followers who chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo are comparable to the two sons. Do you understand? Okay, so everybody's got slanderous views, but the two sons who do not are comparable to Nichiren and his followers. Finally, causing them in the end to dwell in the single vehicle, as the Supernatural Powers chapter says, Nichiren and his followers will see to it that those erroneous views are corrected. Okay, and how will we do that?
Keep chanting.
Huh?
Chant.
No, it's going to take more than that. What do we do to accomplish Kosen Rufu? Because that's what he's talking about. Those views are corrected. That's Kosen Rufu. We do Shaka Buku. We correct those incorrect understandings. That's how we fix it. That's how Nichiren and his followers will see to it that those erroneous views are corrected. How do we do that? We do that by teaching the correct understanding through Shakabuku as bodhisattvas of the earth. Okay? Okay, so that's the end of chapter 27, King Wonderful Adornment. Let's go on to page 189. And chapter 28, Encouragements of Bodhisattva Universal Worthy. 6 important points. Everybody's with me?
Yep.
Okay, good. Concerning Bodhisattva Universal Worthy. Words and Phrases, Volume 10 says the word kambotsu, or encouragement, is expressive of veneration for the law. I'll say it again. The word kambotsu, or encouragement, is expressive of veneration for the law. What's veneration for the law? Do you know what veneration means?
What's that?
Okay, to hold in high esteem, to venerate is to praise and to endeavor to, veneration is to look up to. Okay, so it is expressive of veneration for the law. It's to hold the law in the highest regard. Okay, veneration for the law means nothing's higher than the Gohonzon. Okay. All right. The word kambotsu, or encouragement, is expressive of veneration for the law. The record of the orally transmitted, but that was Tentai saying that. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, in the compound kambotsu, the element kan, or encouragement, refers to the conversion of others. Okay? Which, what do we have to do to attain Buddhahood in our present form? We have to not only understand ourselves, but we have to encourage and help others, right? Okay, so this is an elemental part of our attaining Buddhahood. This is an elemental part of our practice. We can't escape this responsibility or this duty or this action. This action will always be a part of practice. Okay, so The record of the orally transmitted teaching says in the compound Kambotsu, the element kan, or encouragement, refers to the conversion of others, while the element hotsu is, or is that a B or a, is that
Hotsu is a
it,
B.
It is a B, okay.
Yeah, it's a B.
While, bad eyes, you know. All right. While the element botsu, or hotsu, I guess, well, hang on, now you're messing with me. Is one's a B and one's an H, or?
No,
They're both
is
B.
Yeah.
Okay, while the element botsu, or botsu, I don't get why they said it twice.
Yeah, me too.
All right, or initiate refers to one's own practice. They must be two different characters, even though they sound the same. Okay, whatever. In the name Fugen, or universal worthy, do you remember we used to call it the Fugen Sutra? Whatever. In the name Fugen, or universal worthy, the element Fu, universal, refers to the true aspect of all phenomena, the principle of eternal and unchanging truth as embodied in the theoretical teaching. Now let me say that again. In the name Fugen, or universal worthy, the element Fu, universal, refers to the true aspect of all phenomena, the principle of eternal and unchanging truth as embodied in the theoretical teachings. And what's that talking about? That's talking about the law itself. That's talking about Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. That's talking about the entire Dharma realm. It's talking about the original state. Okay? All right. The element Gen, the unchanging truth as embodied, okay, in the theoretical teaching, which is all based on stories and getting there someday, right? The element Gen, or worthy, or wise, which means you have to you're understanding things correctly, expresses the idea of wisdom. So it's one thing, everything is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, but who understands that? And how do you understand it? Do you understand it correctly, or with your own little twist, or according to a different school, or, okay, do you follow now?
Sure.
All right, so the element Gen, or worthy, or wise, expresses the idea of wisdom, the wisdom of the truth that functions in accordance with changing circumstances as embodied in the essential teaching, the revelation of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay? That we can utilize, understand, and sustain within our lives. This Buddhahood that already exists. We don't have to attain it. We merely have to say it. Okay? And embrace it. Okay? So, let me say that again. In the name Fugen, or universal worthy, the element Fu, universal, refers to the true aspect of all phenomena, which I would normally say is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, because it is, okay? The principle of an eternal and unchanging truth as embodied in the theoretical teaching. And Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is embodied in the theoretical teaching, but it is not revealed in the theoretical teaching. Do you understand? The three theoretical teaching has the concept of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo embodied in it from the Hoben chapter. The second chapter is where he reveals. He's already discussed us all in here. All right, let's keep going. Okay, and the element Gen, or worthy, or wise, expresses the idea of wisdom, or the ability to perceive, or the fact that you have had the fortune to perceive. The wisdom of the truth that functions in accordance with changing circumstances as embodied in the essential teaching, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, that we can chant ourselves and bring forth. It's not the law itself that everything exists, it's our utilization of it. Okay? Hence, we see that here at the conclusion of the sutra, at the conclusion of the Lotus Sutra, the 28th chapter, there is expressed a veneration for the law as it is implied in the two teachings, the theoretical and the essential. And that's why Nichiren doesn't toss out the theoretical and only embrace the essential teaching, where Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is located hidden in the depths of the 16th chapter, right? Why did he teach us hidden meanings in those first 14 chapters? Because they all pertain to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, every single one that he did, right? This is what this is qualifying. That's why Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is there, even though you don't see it or hear it. Do Do you follow? Okay. Generally speaking, we may say that now when Nichiren and his followers chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, they enjoyed the care and protection of Bodhisattva Universal Worthy. Okay? Because we're doing all the things that he pledged to do. We are acting as Bodhisattva Universal Worthy. Do you follow? Just like we're acting as King Wonderful Adornment. Just like we have perceiver of the world's sounds in our minds, and we have Shakyamuni Buddha in our minds, and we have every Buddha in our mind. All Buddhas have the same mind. They all share the Buddha, the mind of Buddhahood. Okay, so there's no distinction. It's how the law permeates throughout this Dharma realm without having to have more than one of the same entity. We all possess this. Okay? All right, so point 2, on the passage, if when the Lotus Sutra is propagated throughout Japadvipa, there are those who accept and uphold it, they should think to themselves, this is all due to the authority and supernatural power of Universal Worthy. Because we read that Universal Worthy is the one that's been entrusted in the 28th chapter. You must never let it, in the 5th 500-year period, you must propagate it and never let it extinguish, it says, or something like that. Okay? The record of the orally transmitted teaching says it is due to the authority and supernatural power of Bodhisattva Universal Worthy that this Lotus Sutra is propagated throughout Japadvipa. Why? Therefore, the widespread propagation of this sutra must be under the care and protection of Bodhisattva Universal Worthy. Because Universal Worthy was supposed to spread it widely and broadly in southern Japadvipa. You must go south. He's going to mention that, okay? This is about the fact that where we are, Japadvipa is the entire world, right? Where we are, chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, must be the southern continent. Now that's where the law is propagated, okay? So, let me say this all again. Point 2, if when the Lotus Sutra is propagated throughout Japadvipa, there are those who accept and uphold it, they should think to themselves, this is all due to the authority and supernatural power of Universal Worthy, who started all of this propagation after Shakyamuni told him to, in the 28th chapter, in the 5th 500-year period specifically. Do you understand? All right? When he's talking about the 5th 500-year period, he's talking about Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay? The record of the orally transmitted teaching says it is due to the authority and supernatural power of Bodhisattva Universal Worthy that this Lotus Sutra is propagated throughout Japadvipa. Therefore, the widespread propagation of this sutra must be under the care and protection of Bodhisattva Universal Worthy. That's why we're going to read the Universal Worthy Sutra as an epilogue to having read the Lotus Sutra. That's why it's considered part of the threefold Lotus Sutra. Universal Worthy Sutra is part of the Lotus Sutra. It's part of the threefold Lotus Sutra, just like the Immeasurable Meaning Sutra is the first of the three. Do you understand? Okay, so point 3, on the passage, if they do no more than copy the sutra. In other words, if we're the ones that are doing Kosen Rufu, we should have respect and appreciation towards this Bodhisattva Universal Worthy element, which is actually what in the sutra is saying is making the vow to accomplish what we're actually accomplishing. What's it say up here? If when the Lotus Sutra is propagated through Japadvipa, there are those who accept and uphold it. That's what we're doing, right? They should think to themselves, this is all due to the authority and supernatural power of Bodhisattva Universal Worthy. We should not think that it's strictly because of ourselves. Okay? There are all kinds of influences that have preceded us for us to finally get to Mappo, and for this to all be set up for Kosen Rufu to be accomplished, and for the original teacher to make his advent to correctly qualify the original teaching. Okay? So now, going on to point 3. On the passage, if they do no more than copy the sutra, who's they? He's going to say who they is. if they do no more than copy the sutra, when their lives come to an end, they will be reborn in the Rishma heaven. At the same time, 84,000 heavenly women. How do you like that? Performing all kinds of music will come to greet them. Such persons will put on crowns made of 7 jewels, and amidst the ladies in waiting will amuse and enjoy themselves. Page 190 at the bottom. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says the number 84,000 refers to the doctrine of the 84,000 dust-like cares that beset us. So what would that be? All the thoughts in our minds that day in and day out change and move around, that are worries and confusions and okay. Or the earthly desires, or the things that we want. Okay, it is so either fears or either concerns or things that we desire. It is referring to the principle that earthly desires are none other than enlightenment, and the sufferings of birth and death are none other than nirvana. Okay, so why did he just qualify that way? I'll say it again. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says the number 84,000 refers to the doctrine of 84,000 dust-like cares that beset us, or the earthly desires. It is referring to the principle that earthly desires are none other than enlightenment, and the sufferings of birth and death are none other than nirvana. And we understand that as what? I've said it a million times. I want to hear somebody repeat it to me. Why are earthly desires none other than enlightenment? Because unless you're born in the Sahe world, the realm of earthly desires, you cannot attain Buddhahood. You cannot reflect Buddhahood.
Right.
Okay? You cannot live as a Buddha, transforming the lives of others. You can't be compassionate as you want to be. Okay? And the sufferings of birth and death are none other than nirvana. Is true because of why? Because it's only when we go into this Sahe world where we experience the sufferings of birth and death that we're able to attain Buddhahood or express our Buddhahood.
Right.
Okay? All right. So then the very bottom of 190. The crowns made of 7 jewels, as it's mentioned in this, such persons will put on crowns made of 7 jewels. It says in the part from the sutra above, right? Okay, the crowns made of 7 jewels represent the 7 openings in the head, those of the eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. Now Nichiren and his followers who chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo are persons who wear such crowns. We manifest as human beings, and we attain Buddhahood in our present form and show others how to do the same thing. We become a living being. We come out of the original state of non-substantiality. We enter temporary existence.
Yes.
We enter extinction, which is not extinction, going back into nonsense over and over and over again. All right? Everybody's with me?
Yeah.
All right. So then now we wear such crowns. The mind of people of the Buddha. Point 4 on the passage, if there are persons, because all the 7 holes are in our head.
Right.
Supporting our brain. Point 4 on the passage, if there are persons who accept, they didn't mention our anus or our,
No, 7 holes.
right. Other holes. Okay, urinate, gotta go poo-poo. There are other holes. We don't mention those holes. Okay, I'm joking. Point 4, page 191 on the passage, if there are persons who accept, uphold, read, and recite the sutra and understand its principles, when the lives of these persons come to an end, they will be received in the hands of 1,000 Buddhas who will free them from all fear and keep them from following in evil paths of existence. Why would that be the case? Because we've already been assured if we do all that, we're going to attain Buddhahood.
Right.
Right? So it says, if there are persons who accept, uphold, if they do everything that that I've already told you got to do,
Right.
Okay, when their lives come to an end, they don't go to the Avicii hell. They go to the ninth realm. Okay, the ninth consciousness. Excuse me. If there are persons who accept, uphold, read, and recite the sutra and understand its principles, which means they also shakabuku people, when the lives of these persons come to an end, they will be received into the hands of 1,000 Buddhas who will free them from all fear. So whatever this non-substantiality state of the ninth consciousness is, you are not going to feel any fear there's nothing but joy. It is a space of joy. Okay, and keep them from falling into the evil paths of existence. We will not go backwards in our next life and not be able to attain Buddhahood. We should actually have a next life that reflects increased fortune. Frankly speaking, unless we volunteered, we don't give a shit about that. Okay, which some people are that badass. Okay, the record of the Ole transmitted teaching says on page 191, when persons who do not have faith in the Lotus Sutra come to the end of their lives, they fall into hell. Okay, now what is that hell that he's talking about? He didn't say the Avicii hell, so they fall into hell. Avicii hell's the lowest hell. What is the hell that everybody else falls into regardless if they haven't attained Buddhahood? If they haven't entered the path of Buddhahood, I should say. What's the path of Buddhahood? Hearing the name and the words of the truth. Okay, and then becoming a voice here, cause and awaken one, a Bodhisattva, and revealing your Buddhahood, right? Okay, so this hell they're talking about is the lower six paths. It's not specifically hell, the world of hell. It's that you can't get to Buddhahood.
Yeah.
You can't get to the seventh realm. You just go back around and around and around and around in the six. Okay? You never get to meet a Buddha. You never get to hear the name and the words of the truth. You just keep suffering the sufferings of birth and death as sufferings, not as momentary states of existence with your life condition, that of Buddha. Everybody's with me?
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Is it okay? Do you understand it conceptually? You understand it conceptually, but do you understand it in actuality?
You mean the hell?
Yeah. Again, when a person who do not hell, this concept of hell. Okay, so it's not about you had to be a bad person. It's that you didn't do the things necessary to be able to escape being a common mortal. That's the distinction I'm trying to make. It's not like you had to be a bank robber or something like that to go to hell. The hell they're talking about is the inability to escape the 6 lower realms.
Right.
Okay? Which would be a hell. Spend eternity and never be able to be the Buddha when you could have been all along.
Right.
Okay. All right. So everybody's with me now. Now we know, okay. They fall into hell. Hence, the sutra says if a person fails to have faith, but instead slanders this sutra, immediately he will destroy all the seeds for becoming a Buddha in this world. Okay, that's what the sutra says. When his life comes to an end, he will enter the Avicii hell. Now that's for somebody that slandered the sutra. Okay, but if they did nothing to be able to embrace the sutra, to be able to enter the path of hearing the name and the words of the truth, then they're in a different stage of the six realms. Okay, not the lowest one, which is hell. When his life comes to an end, he will enter the Avicii hell. That's from chapter 3, Simile and Parable. But when the practitioners of the Lotus Sutra come to the end of their lives, they will attain Buddhahood. Thus, the text here says, when the lives of these persons come to an end, they will be received into the hands of 1,000 Buddhas. I guess that's making their way in the state of non-substantiality to the realm of the ninth consciousness. The 1,000 Buddhas represent the doctrine of the 1,000 factors. The wardens of hell will come to greet those who have slandered the law. but 1,000 Buddhas will come to greet the practitioners of the law. Without doubt, therefore, 1,000 Buddhas will come to greet Nichiren and his followers who chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. So he is just, again, guaranteeing you favorable reward by maintaining faith throughout your life there, okay? Point 5, on the passage, world honored one, I now, mid but lower part of page 191, I now therefore employ my pardon me. On the passage, world honored one, I now therefore employ my transcendental powers to guard and protect this sutra. And after the thus come one has entered extinction, I will cause it to be widely propagated throughout Jampadvipa. I will see that it never comes to an end. Okay, so that's what Universal Worthy is responding, saying, the record of the orally transmitted teaching says, this word throughout, in this above phrase where he says, throughout Jampadvipa, or more literally, within, okay, because it's throughout is also completely within, right? If you go throughout, you've gone completely. Throughout is completely more literally. It's more literally within. Okay, Jampadvipa. Okay, The record of, let me read it again. The world honored one, I now therefore employ my transcendental powers to guard and protect this sutra. And after the thus come one has entered extinction, I will cause it to be widely propagated throughout Jampadvipa, and will see that it never comes to an end. Now we're supposed to be in the southern end of Jampadvipa. Okay, that's where we're supposedly located. All right, now, so the record of the orally transmitted teaching says this word throughout, or more literally within, implies that the three other directions, east, west, and north, are less favored, because there's no universal worthy saying, I'm going to go propagate the law there. It may come later, but where it'll happen is where it is happening now, first, where Nichiren's qualifying it as, okay, this current era of earth, okay? The record of the orally transmitted teaching says this word throughout, or more literally within, implies that the three other directions, east, west, and north, are less favored. The sutra passage is saying that the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni's Lotus Sutra, is to be propagated only within the southern continent of Jampadvipa. One should give careful thought to the word within. Okay? Now that's why I tried to clarify it further. Please do so yourself with Daimoku. Okay? You should try to understand, you should challenge the Gohonzon for all of this to understand it on its deepest level. You know, you take all of your questions about this and what I've said and ask them again to the Gohonzon, and you'll get the clarity that you seek. I guarantee you. Okay? What was very confusing won't be confusing anymore. All right? And so he ends that last point 5 with, now when Nichiren and his followers chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, they must ponder this matter deeply. That we are uniquely here within the southern continent of Jampadvipa. We have a relationship. We have relationships with the people that live here. It's our mission to accomplish Kosen Rufu here. Not somewhere else in the universe right now, but here. Okay? Point 6 on page 192. On the passage, universal worthy after the thus come one has entered extinction. If you see someone who accepts, upholds, reads, and recites the Lotus Sutra, you should think to yourself, before long this person will proceed to the place of practice, conquer the devil hosts, and attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, supreme perfect enlightenment. Now see, I see that in all of you. I see that everywhere I look. Okay? The record of the orally transmitted teaching says the words this person, okay, if you see someone, before long, this person, if you see someone that does all this, then before long, this person, so he says, this person refers to the practitioner of the Lotus Sutra. Is that not all of us? Yeah, so This sutra is speaking of you at this moment. Understand that?
Yeah.
Okay. The place where the person, you, uphold and honor the Lotus Sutra is the place of practice where you have your Gohonzon enshrined, where you live, what country you live in, okay? To what parents you were born from, because that determines the country you live in, generally speaking, all right? And honors the Lotus Sutra is the place of practice to which the person proceeds. Let me say that whole sentence again. The words "this person" refer to the practitioner of the Lotus Sutra. The place where the person upholds and honors the Lotus Sutra is the place of practice to which the person proceeds. It is not that he leaves the present place and goes to some other place.
Right.
That's what he's trying to make clear here. This is all about us right now in this moment. It's not someday, somewhere, or anything else. It's this moment, right now, us. Okay? Okay. It is not that he leaves his present place and goes to some other place. The place of practice is the place where the living beings of the 10 worlds reside. And now the place where Nichiren and his followers chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, whether in the mountain valleys or in the wide wilderness, these places are all the land of eternally tranquil light, from the Supernatural Powers chapter. This is what is meant by the place of practice. And when it says that all these places are the land of eternally tranquil light, what is he saying that they are? Come on, guys. They're Buddha lands.
Yeah.
Okay? We don't aspire to go to a Buddha land. We manifest a life intention that creates where we're at as the Buddha land. Because we have the authority and the power to do so. We're thus come ones, for Christ's sake. You get it?
Yeah.
Okay. But we can't be as long as we don't understand that.
Right.
You just cannot bring forth the power before you understand that you will after you understand that.
No,
Because after you understand that, you know there's no excuse. There is no excuse. As a matter of fact, you better get your ass in gear and do it. Okay? So, these places are all the land of eternally tranquil light because they're occupied by Buddhas. This is what is meant by the place of practice. If you're doing all of that other stuff, the place where you're practicing is already a Buddha land. That's what that just said. Okay? A commentary, the annotations on the profound meaning of Lotus Sutra, volume 10 says, this cause, okay, is unchanging and never fails to bring about enlightenment. Okay? Okay. Universal worthy, after the thus come one has entered extinction, if you see someone who accepts, upholds, reads, and recites the Lotus Sutra, you should think to yourself, before long, this person will proceed to the place of practice, conquer the devil hosts, and attain enlightenment, supreme perfect enlightenment. That's the cause that he's referring to. This cause is unchanging. So this process, what it involves, what it entails, who experiences it, and who does not, and why, is all completely contained in everything we've already read. Okay? But it says, again, this cause is unchanging, and there's no exceptions. All right? This cause is unchanging and never fails to bring about enlightenment. You will become a Buddha if you chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, period. There is no way for you not to. It would completely disprove. It would say that everything's bullshit. And there are too many lives that are experiencing and expressing it for it to be bullshit. It's got to be something about you. There's sure anything I have a problem understanding or experiencing or expressing, frankly. So I know it can be. This cause can be accomplished even if you're an asura, for Christ's sake. You don't have to be a good person to come to this understanding and empowerment. You don't have to become perfect. It's okay exactly as you are. This cause is unchanging. And because of that, it's so powerful, it doesn't matter. It can change King... what's his name? King, Wonderful Adornment was his name? Yeah, King Wonderful, Wonderful Adornment. Didn't matter what kind of shit he had been doing. As soon as his sons converted him, it vanished. It washes away. It rinses off like dust in a rainstorm. Okay? It doesn't stick. It's not your original state. Okay? It's something, it's an impediment you've placed on yourself. So when you remove it yourself, it's gone. It doesn't take a God to do that for you. It doesn't take a higher power to do that for you. You are already the higher power. Straight up. Completely. Can you understand that? And we're all equal. So we're all higher powers of the same magnitude. So there's no distinction being created by me saying what I just said. That's why we have such a thing as Buddhahood. Everybody's with me. All right, so I don't know where I was. I'm just going to go ahead and finish, start reading again. The record of the already transmitted teaching says the words "this person" refers to the practitioner of the Lotus Sutra. The place where the person upholds and honors the Lotus Sutra is the place of practice to which the person proceeds. It is not that he leaves the present place and goes to some other place. The place of practice is the place where the living beings of the 10 worlds reside. And now the place where Nichiren and his followers chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, whether in the mountain valleys or the wide wilderness, these places are all the land of eternally tranquil light, because you're already Buddhist, because you chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. This is what is meant by the place of practice. This cause is unchanging and never fails to bring about enlightenment. And hence the text says, proceeding directly to the place of practice. Not going through lifetimes of transformation, of becoming a little better person, and a little better person, and a little better person. Proceeding directly from being a shit to being the Buddha. No problema. Devadatta did it. Okay? If Devadatta do it, I can do it. Okay? There's nobody bad enough to be too bad. It's a fact. That's what it's saying. All right? In this chapter, Shakyamuni Buddha revealed the foremost point he wished to convey to us. So the Daishonin is saying, in this chapter, the Buddha revealed the foremost point he wished to convey to us. The Buddha preached the Lotus Sutra over a period of 8 years, and 8 characters sum up the message he left behind for living beings in this latter age and the latter day of the law. It is in the passage that reads, "Therefore, universal worthy, if you see a person who accepts and upholds this sutra, you should rise and greet him from afar, showing him the same respect you would be a Buddha," from chapter 28. Particularly, you should that says the 8 characters are all contained in this phrase. Here it is specifically. Particularly the 8 characters that make up the end of the passage. You should rise and greet him, etc. With this passage, the words of Shakyamuni Buddha in the sutra come to an end, and thus, in effect, end the sutra. The word "should" shows that these words refer to the future. Okay, and what is he saying that we should? Why should we rise and greet him from afar? And if you should see such a person who accepts and upholds, you should rise and greet him from afar. You should say, "Dude, what up?" Right? You shouldn't just blow him off and let him walk by without qualifying. "I see you." Why? Because we recognize their Buddha nature, regardless of who that person is that is afar. If they're giving it a shot, they're already more than halfway there. They've already opened the door. We already know for sure you're going to become a Buddha. If you haven't yet, you will. You're already on a path you can't get off of. I did the same thing. Okay? And we can say it with that assuredness because we did the same thing. Because the teaching actualized itself in our lives literally. It's pretty heavy shit. The word "should" shows that these words refer to the future. Top of page 193. The words "should rise and greet him from afar" indicate that the sutra passage is saying that one should without fail show the practitioners of the Lotus Sutra the kind of respect that one would show to a Buddha. Okay? Similarly, the teacher of the law chapter says, again, if there are persons who embrace, read, recite, expound, and copy the Lotus Sutra, and look upon this sutra with the same reverence as they would the Buddha. Okay? There's no separation between this teaching and the reward body. Okay? Of course, there's no difference between this teaching and the Dharma body, because this teaching is the entire Dharma realm. But the reward body is the capacity to perceive the truth, to perceive the correct teaching, and to understand it and convey it. Okay? Everybody has a Dharma body. You're born with it. The reward body has to be developed through faith. For 8 years, the Buddha preached the law, beginning with what the Expedient Means chapter of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo calls the wisdom of the Buddhas. Now, what did he just do? He just renamed another chapter. We already know he renamed the 16th chapter. What's the 16th chapter called? Lifespan. The lifespan, actually, the lifespan of the thus come one. What did Nichiren rename that chapter to in the OTT? Which has been the basis of everything I've said since the day you met me, because I'd already read this at that moment, at that time. I already knew what the deal is. I am the Buddha, exactly as I am. I don't have to change anything about myself. Okay? So, for 8 years, the Buddha preached, beginning with what the Expedient Means chapter of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo calls the wisdom of the Buddhas. What's he saying? What did he just do? Since it's the Expedient Means chapter, it can't say Nam-myoho Renge-kyo because it's not the fifth 500-year period yet, right? Okay, so he just now renamed it the Expedient Means chapter of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. In other words, he's qualifying again. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is there all throughout the theoretical teaching, even though it's not referred to. Okay? So the Expedient Means, it says the wisdom of the Buddhas are balanced, the wisdom consists of, and then it goes off on the 10 factors. That is the basis of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, is it not? The true aspect of all phenomena, right? Okay, so the word should shows that these words refer to the future. Words should rise and greet him from afar indicate that the sutra passage is saying that one should without fail show the practitioners of the Lotus Sutra this kind of respect one would show to a Buddha. Similarly, the teacher of the law chapter says, again, if there are persons who embrace, read, recite, expound, and copy the Lotus Sutra, and look upon this sutra with the same reverence as they would the Buddha, they are in fact functioning as Buddhas. For 8 years, the Buddha preached the law, beginning with what the Expedient Means chapter of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo calls the wisdom of the Buddhas, before it's revealed by Nichiren. And then ending his preaching with the 8 characters that read, you should rise and greet him from afar, showing him the same respect you would a Buddha. With just these 8 characters, he summed up the message of the entire sutra. Hence, the words and phrases, volume 10 says, the section that begins with, you should rise and greet him from afar, showing him the same respect you would a Buddha, concludes the description of the benefits gained by persons of faith. What is that? Why is it saying? Concludes the description of benefits gained by persons of faith. Because you can only be motivated to rise and greet on the basis that he is saying to, if you've done all this other stuff. You're already the Buddha. Okay? That is the basis of this one word, faith. All right, I'll say it. With just these 8 characters, he summed up the message of the entire sutra. Hence, Words and Phrases, Volume 10, that's Chintai saying, says this section that begins with, you should rise in greeting from afar, showing him the same respect you would a Buddha, concludes the description of the benefits gained by persons of faith. That was Chintai. He says, now that is, the entire Lotus Sutra has as its basis this one word, faith, which we already all know, right? Faith is the basis of everything.
Yeah.
Question. In the present text of the Lotus Sutra, the introduction chapter begins with the word nyo, this or like this. And the universal worthy chapter, the last chapter, ends with the word ko, departed. This arrangement was made on purpose by the Tripitaka master Kumera Jiva. But what doctrinal principle is he attempting to express thereby? Answer. So that was a question that the Daishonin put in himself. He's answering it himself. The essence of the teachings expressed in the Lotus Sutra lies in the 2 principles of the true aspect of all phenomena and Shakyamuni Buddha's original enlightenment in the distant past. These constitute its doctrinal. These constitute its essential doctrines. Okay, I'm going to say this again and say it clearly. The essence of the teachings expressed in the Lotus Sutra, okay, Shakyamuni's Lotus Sutra, lies in the 2 principles of the true aspect of all phenomena, although it's not identified as Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the principle of the true aspect, okay, and Shakyamuni Buddha's the principle of Goyaku Jintingo. No. Numberless major world system, dust particle corpus. Shakyamuni's original enlightenment in the distant past. These constitute its essential doctrines. The first word in the sutra, nyo, expresses the true aspect of all phenomena, while the last word, ko, expresses the event in the remote past. Now, the event in the remote past that he's referring to isn't the one that is referred to by Shakyamuni in the Lotus Sutra. He's talking about the first time, which is the original state. All right? The original state of all Buddhas is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. The original state of all existence is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay, so the essence of the teachings expressed in the Lotus Sutra. Answer. The essence of the teachings expressed in the Lotus Sutra lies in the 2 principles of the true aspect of all phenomena and Shakyamuni Buddha's original enlightenment in the distant past. These constitutes its essential doctrines. The first word in the sutra, nyo, expresses the true aspect of all phenomena, while the last word, ko, expresses the event in the remote past, his attainment of Buddhahood, his original attainment of Buddhahood. Hence, we may say that the true aspect of all phenomena represents the theory or principle, underlying the teaching, while the event in the remote past represents the factual realization, of the principle. Do you know why he's bringing all this out? Because he's qualifying what was up until this point understood and acted upon, theoretically, was Tiantai's Makashikan. Okay? That would be more in line with the theory, the Makashikan, because you can't attain actual Ichiren Sans in the absence of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. That's what he's trying to qualify here. All right? And pardon me, while the event in the remote past represents the factual realization, really exists of the principle. The word theory or principle, means the principle of emptiness, and the word emptiness means nyo, or like, or equal to something. That is why the word nyo was chosen to represent theory or principle and emptiness. Thus, a commentary, Profound Meaning, Chintai, Volume 2 says, the word nyo means not different from, and hence has the meaning of emptiness. The event in the past is the land of factual realization, of the nyo principle. Therefore, the core of the doctrine found in the lifespan chapter of the essential teaching is summed up in the factual realization of the actuality, or the perfect doctrine of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. Now, what did he just compare there? He compared theoretical Ichinen Sanzen and actual Ichinen Sanzen. And why did he do that? Because until it was revealed, it was theoretical. It wasn't actualized until it was revealed. Okay? So he's saying the same thing about the understanding or belief in this original state, and the actualization of the original state is based on the actualization of entities of life. But the original state precedes entities of life. It didn't just suddenly manifest from nowhere and then become a part of all entities of life. It's a building block of entities of life. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, so the law precedes the manifestation of the law. Because the manifestations are manifestations. Okay? Okay. There's something that transforms. Okay, you follow. All right. So the event in the distant, let me go back all the way. Shit. I got to get some fluidity going here. Answer. Let me go all the way back to question on 193, and I'm sorry I'm stretching this out, but this is very technical stuff, and I have to. Question. In the present text of the Lotus Sutra, the introduction chapter begins with the word nyo, this, or like this. And the universal worthy chapter, the last chapter, ends with the word ko, departed. This arrangement was made on purpose by the Tripitaka master Kumera Jaiva. But what doctrinal principle is he attempting to express thereby? Answer. The essence of the teachings expressed in the Lotus Sutra lies in the two principles of the true aspect of all phenomena, the law that exists theoretically, and Shakyamuni Buddha's original enlightenment, the law as expressed in actuality, okay, in the distant past. Are you with me? Okay, numberless major world system, dust particle kalpas ago. That's not Kuan Ganjo, though. Kuan Ganjo is a point before there could have been anything else. Do you understand? It's beginningless. So there couldn't be something that was already there. Got it? Only laws, only principles can exist, not things. Manifestations cannot exist. All right? These constitute its essential doctrines, the Buddha's original enlightenment and the true aspect of all phenomena. The first word in the sutra, nyo, expresses the true aspect of all phenomena, the principle, because it's in the theoretical teaching, right? Okay. While the last word, ko, which is in the essential teaching, expresses the event, which makes it real, correct? You're with me now, right? In the remote past. Hence, we may say that the true aspect of all phenomena represents the theory or principle underlying the teaching, while the event in the remote past represents the factual realization, G, of the principle, re and versus G. The word re, theory or principle, means the principle of emptiness. The word emptiness means nyo, because why is emptiness principle or nyo? Theory. Why is non-substantiality theory or principle? Because it's non-substantial. It's not something that exists as something that you could measure or see or qualify. Okay? So the word re-theory or principle means the principle of emptiness, and the word emptiness means nyo, or like, or equal to something. Equal to something. Okay? That is why the word nyo was chosen to represent theory or principle and emptiness, non-substantiality. Okay? Thus, the commentary Profound Meaning, Volume 2 says the word nyo means not different from, and hence has the meaning of emptiness. Why? What is the difference between everything in non-substantiality? It's non-substantial. You can't determine a difference. Okay? It's not a spiritual realm where you exist in some other form that's a spirit. We're temporary gatherings of the five components.
Right.
They all go back to the component of to the place of form and the place of all of the elements that come after form of functionality of a living being, right? So the word nyo means not different from. So everything in non-substantiality looks the same. It's non-substantial. It has nothing to make it look any different. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? It's all the same. It's just varying karmic realizations of those things as they exist in storage. They're in a storage space, right? Non-substantiality is going to come in between each temporary existence. And it's always going to reflect the last lifetime, and it's always going to have deducted from it the experiences of the last lifetime. Right? The karma that you actually expiated. You with me? All right. So, it's too deep. I'm sorry. You either understand what I'm saying or not. Sorry. The word re-theory or principle means the principle of emptiness, and the word emptiness means nyo, or like, or equal to something, or equal to something. That is why the word nyo was chosen to represent the principle, or theory or principle, and emptiness. Thus, a commentary, Profound Meaning, Volume 2 says the word nyo means not different from, and hence has the meaning of emptiness. There's no separation between us when we're in non-substantiality, is what I'm trying to say this is saying. We have no form. The event in the distant past is the factual realization, G, of the nyo principle. The nyo principle is the potentiality that will occur because it is real, even though it's non-substantial.
Right.
Okay? Therefore, the core of the doctrine found in the lifespan chapter of the essential teaching is summed up in the factual realization of the actuality of the perfect doctrine of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. What did he just say there, though? What was he talking about when he said, what did he say the actuality is? I misspoke. Let me say it again. The event in the distant past is the factual realization, G, of the nyo principle. Therefore, the core of the doctrine found in the lifespan chapter of the essential teaching is summed up in the factual realization of the actuality, or the perfect doctrine of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. When he's saying, what is the factual realization of the actuality, or the perfect doctrine of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life? He's saying that these two things are the same, is summed up in the factual realization of actuality. What has he been clarifying Tentai's 3,000 realms is? Theoretical. It's not actual, right? And what has he been qualifying his 3,000 realms in a single moment of life as?
Right.
Actual. So his realization of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the actuality that takes the theory and makes it something that is real.
Right here, right
Okay? It creates what was theoretically, it was already real, but it just wasn't substantial.
Right.
Okay? Now it's actualized. Say it again. The event in the distant past is the factual realization, the G. So now it's real. It's not theoretical.
Right.
Therefore, the core of the doctrine found in the lifespan chapter of the essential teaching is summed up in the factual realization, the introduction of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, of the actuality, or the perfect doctrine of of 3,000 realms. The perfect doctrine of 3,000 realms is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. All right? The word ko, or departed, corresponds to that which took place long ago. Ko means, this is the middle of page 194. Ko means to be separated from something, while nyo means joined together. Separation represents the mind that makes distinctions. Joining together represents the mind that is without distinction. Do you understand what he's saying there? The word ko, or departed, corresponds to that which took place long ago, the original state. Ko means to be separated from something. What is the ko that you're separated from? Your 5 original components, right? While nyo means to be joined together. Nyo means currently you're here, right? The other one was theoretical, the other one's real, right? Nyo and ko and nyo. Ko, or departed, and nyo means to Nyo is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Nyo expresses the true aspect of all phenomena. The word ko or departed corresponds to that which took place long ago. Ko corresponds to be separated from, while nyo means to join together. Now this true aspect is joined together in one form of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. It's not a lot of individual principles or knowledges that you have to master. Ko means to be separated from something, while nyo means to be joined together. Nyo is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Separation represents the mind that makes distinctions. Joining together represents the mind that is without distinction. What's the mind of distinction? And what is the mind that makes distinction? And joining together represents the mind is without distinction. What would that mean? What makes the mind that makes distinctions is what?
Realization.
Delusion. Obviously, right? It sees things as all different. It makes distinctions.
Right.
The mind that is without distinction sees everything as the
Equal.
original state. Everything is the law. Everything is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay? That is without. Okay, that's what that paragraph. I got to get through these paragraphs. I'll never finish. When these two principles of separation and joining together are applied to the relationship of living beings and Buddhahood, we may say that joining together stands for the world of Buddhahood, while separation stands for the various kinds of living beings.
Oh.
Do you follow?
Yeah.
Why? The various kinds of living beings all have different minds.
Right.
That's why they make distinctions. The mind of the Buddha is the same in all Buddhas. They don't see those distinctions. So that's what that meant. When these two principles of separation and joining together apply to the relationship of living beings and Buddhahood, we may say that joining together stands for the world of Buddhahood, seeing everything equally.
Yeah.
Okay? And while separation, everything is different. Everything has a value attached to it that's a differing value. Okay? While separation stands for the various kinds of living beings. The word nyo that appears at the beginning of the introduction chapter, that is nyo ze gaman, or this is what I heard, expresses the idea that living beings and Buddhahood are not two different things. This is what expresses the idea that living beings and Buddhahood are not two different things, which we know because all 10 worlds exist within us, correct? The theoretical teaching deals with the idea that living beings and Buddhahood are not two different things, since it expresses the eternal and unchanging truth, or thusness, nyo, of things. That's chapter 2. Hence we can say that the nyo of the sentence, this nyo is what I heard, to refer to the nyo of the term eternal and unchanging truth. So he's saying that Nyoze So, Nyoze Sho, Nyoze Tai is still referring to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. In terms of the three truths of non-substantiality, temporary existence, and the middle way, Nyo or this represents non-substantiality. So what he's now going to say is this is all Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay, so I'm going to read it more quickly. In terms of the three truths, it's Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Temporary existence in the middle way. Nyo or this represents non-substantiality. Ze or is represents the middle way. And Gaman or what I heard represents temporary existence. The theoretical teaching deals principally with emptiness or non-substantiality, because it's not dealing with Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, which is the actuality. Do you understand?
Right.
All right. Therefore, we may say that on top of the basic principle of oneness or non-differentiation, there is the opposite principle, that of two-ness or differentiation. When the sutra is illustrating this principle of two-ness or differentiation, it treats the members of the assembly, all of whom alike listen to the sutra, as separate individuals listing their names. The ko or departed or parted, which is placed at the end of the essential teaching, represents the wisdom of the truth that functions in accordance with changing circumstances. The wisdom to perceive all of them as the same thing. All of them as the same manifestations of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. It expresses the idea that living beings and Buddhahood are two different things. Hence, the word departed or parted is used because, again, living beings don't necessarily have the Buddha mind,
Right.
right? and Buddhahood are two different things. Hence the word departed or parted is used. Indeed, departed of the words they bowed in obeisance and departed, chapter 28, is regarded as the wisdom of the truth that functions in accordance with changing circumstances. The essential teaching thus deals with the non-differentiation that is based on differentiation. Can you understand what it's trying to qualify there? Say it again. The essential teaching thus deals with the non-differentiation, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, that is based on differentiation. It's uncovering the truth of what is revealed as the essence of all those things that seem to be different but aren't.
The same, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
One should think of a commentary on this which reads, two but not two, constantly the same, yet constantly different,
Right.
past and present. Such is the Dharma. We may also take the word everybody's with me now,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
We got now, okay, we're all in the same lane. We may also take the word or departed and refer to the passage in the Expedient Means chapter that describes how 5,000 arrogant members of the assembly rose from their seats, bowed to the Buddha, and withdrew, departed. Therefore, as has been stated earlier, the number 5,000 stands for 5 types of earthly desires that are at all times a part of our makeup. The meaning of the passage then is that the 5 types of abiding earthly desires bow in obeisance to the Buddha in our own minds and make their departure. The abiding earthly desires leave and allow us to be the Buddha. The two words nyo and ko may also stand for the two okay, and I've got 3 stars after that, so let me read that one more time. We may also say, I'm talking about the 3rd paragraph from it's right in the middle, where it says, we may also take the word ko. Let me finish that again.
Okay.
We may also take the word ko or departed to refer to the passage in the Expedient Means chapter that describes how 5,000 arrogant members of the assembly rose from their seats and bowed to the Buddha and withdrew, departed. We all remember that, right? Therefore, as has been stated earlier, the number 5,000 stands for 5 types of earthly desires that are at all times a part of our makeup. We cannot get rid of them even when we become Buddhists. The meaning of the passage then is that the 5 types of our abiding earthly desires bow in obeisance to the Buddha in our own minds and make their departure. They take on the enlightened nature rather than the nature that they represent by what they are as desires. All right? The 2 words nyo and ko may also stand for the 2 factors of birth and death. As Dingyo says, ko or departed is the thus come one who never comes and therefore never departs, and perfect departure that never departs. In other words, the law is always here, ever present. It never goes away, even though things that possess it change form and remanifest after they re-enter non-substantiality and come back out into temporary existence based on causes and conditions that they're responsible for. I added all that.
Yeah.
The word nyo and thus represents the principle that all phenomena are the mind, okay? Which is the whole principle behind the school that believes everything is non-substantial, the consciousness-only school, okay? Everything is just, it's just a manifestation of, right, there is no phenomenal realm. It's all in our mind, all right? The word nyo or thus represents the principle that all phenomena are the mind, while the word ko or depart represents the principle that the mind is all phenomena. There, you can't separate the two. The principle that all phenomena are the mind is the unchanging truth or thusness, nyo, of the theoretical teaching. The principle that the mind is all phenomena is the truth or thusness that functions in accordance with changing circumstances as expressed in the essential teaching, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. For this reason, when the Dharma realm is compressed into a single mind. This is the principle of Nyo. And when a single mind is opened up and pervades the Dharma realm, this is the principle of Ko. The meaning of this is the same as the oral transmission regarding the three truths and the threefold contemplation or observation of the three truths unified in a single mind. So it's basically saying this is all exactly what Tintai was talking about. According to another, is everybody with me on this, or should I go over it again? Let me start over again at the top, at the bottom of page 195. The word Nyo, or thus, represents the principle that all phenomena are the mind. Okay, which is one school of thought of Buddhism. Okay, not ours. But it doesn't mean that it's not true, because when we're in a state of non-substantiality, it is all mind, right? Okay, are the mind. While the word Ko, or depart, represents the principle that the mind is all phenomena. What that is actually saying is there's no separation between all phenomena and the mind. That's why I say all the time, the entire Dharma realm exists within your mind. That's qualifying that that's true. Okay? The principle that all phenomena are the mind is the unchanging truth or thusness, Nyo, of the theoretical teaching. That's what the theoretical teaching is trying to express as a truth. The principle that the mind is all phenomena, the principle that the mind is all phenomena is the truth or thusness that it functions in accordance with the changing circumstance as expressed in the essential teaching, which contains Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, right? The thing that qualifies how that could be that all things are the same. The original state. Nothing else has ever qualified this as the original state of life. For this reason, when the Dharma realm is compressed into a single mind, okay, which is what? When? When does that occur? Does your mind have the entire Dharma realm in it? Does your mind contain the entire Dharma realm? Yes, it does, in fact, whether you're tapping into it or not. It exists. The entire Dharma realm is in our mind, and our mind pervades the entire Dharma realm, right? It's a two-way sameness. Okay? All right, so for this reason, when the Dharma realm is compressed into a single mind, what's that mean? When the entire Dharma realm is compressed into a single mind, birth, when someone is born, this is the principle of Nyo, and when a single mind is opened up, when we seem to depart, when we go back into non-substantiality, we become a what? We become part of everything, right? Non-substantiality, we got no form. We become permeated throughout everything, right? That's why we're in everybody's mind. Okay? Okay? Whether we're manifest or not. All right? So, where am I? Point to where I'm at. Up here. Okay. All right. Okay. When the Dharma realm is compressed into a single mind, this is the principle of Nyo. And when a single mind is opened up and pervades the entire Dharma realm, when it goes back into the state of non-substantiality, is pervading the entire Dharma realm. This is the principle of Ko, departed. Right? You get it now?
Yep.
Okay. The meaning of this is the same as the oral transmission regarding the three truths and the threefold contemplation or observation of the three truths unified in a single mind. What are the three truths? Non-substantiality, temporary existence, and the middle way. So what did I just describe there? Coming out of non-substantiality, being in temporary existence, and going back into non-substantiality. Okay? That's what that all just said. All right. According to another interpretation, middle of page 196, Nyo stands for true of the true aspect or reality, while Ko stands for the aspect or form. Reality is the mind itself, while form is the workings of the mind. Right? My form is only doing things because my mind exists. Right? Okay. Or again, we may say that all phenomena, in the phrase the true aspect of all phenomena, corresponds to Ko, which is departed, while the true aspect responds to Nyo. this is why we learn the thusness. This is why we learn that the entire Lotus Sutra from beginning to end, this is what it's finally getting to. That's what he's been saying with all of this. This is why we learn that the entire Lotus Sutra from beginning to end deals with the 4 characters that represent the true aspect of all phenomena. What 4 characters are those 4 characters that represent the true aspect of all phenomena? I see that hand up. Come on, lay it on me. Your hand isn't up. Okay. you. What are the 4 characters? Whenever you hear the 4 characters, always just remember. Myo, Ho, Rin, Ge. The mystic law of the simultaneity of cause and effect. That is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Kyo is a teaching and Myo is a return or devotion of oneself. The essence is Myoho Renge.
Okay.
Or pardon me, Nam is return or devotion oneself. Did you follow what I'm saying? Okay, so this is why we learn from Nichiren that the entire Lotus Sutra from beginning to end deals with Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Okay, that's the 4 characters. It deals with Myoho Renge, and that represent the true aspect of all phenomena, which is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. It's the 5th 500-year period. It's Samapo. A commentary, an essay on the protection of the nation written by Dengyo says, now what constitutes the essence of the sutra? The words, the true aspect of all phenomena, constitutes the essence. So Dengyo says, without saying it, because it wasn't the latter day of the law yet, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo constitutes the essence of all things. But you follow me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But now when we delve more deeply into the matter and inquire how Nichiren goes about his religious practice, we may say that for him the word nyo is the nyo as of the phrase practice it as the Lotus Sutra, practice it, the Lotus Sutra, as the sutra instructs. And as far as he's concerned, it instructs in the latter day of the law to only follow the true aspect of all phenomena. Okay? That's what his whole teaching is about. And to reject all the teachings that have preceded it, they've all been expedient means.
Right.
Okay? So, practice it as the Lotus Sutra, as the sutra instructs. Chapter 18, Responding with Joy. Therefore, at the very bottom, last paragraph of 196, therefore, when the transmission of the 5 characters that represent the essence of the Lotus Sutra took place, the procedure began in the Treasure Tower chapter. The procedure began in the Treasure Tower chapter when Shakyamuni Buddha spoke in a voice that penetrated to the lower region, calling on those who are near to preserve the sutra and those who are far away to preserve it. Remember, he was talking to the people in hell, telling them to preserve it. Okay, the Buddha, and here they put the quote, the Buddha wishes to entrust the Lotus Sutra of the Wonderful Law to someone so that it may be preserved. Okay, chapter 11, Treasure Tower, or chapter, yeah. With these 2 words, be preserved, he declared he would entrust the sutra to the bodhisattvas of the essential teaching and the bodhisattvas of the theoretical teaching. Hence, we traditionally refer to this passage as the secret or veiled introduction to the essential teaching. After the 2 Buddhas, Shakyamuni and many treasures, were seated side by side in the Treasure Tower, and the Buddhas that were emanations of Shakyamuni had been gathered together, Shakyamuni proceeded to expound and make clear Myoho Renge Kyo, what the Buddha called this good medicine, chapter 16, lifespan. Then, in the Supernatural Powers chapter, Shakyamuni Buddha demonstrated 10 types of supernatural powers, summoned the teaching of the 4 pronouncements that began with the words, all the doctrines possessed by the thus come one, etc., and in this way entrusted the teaching to the Bodhisattva's superior practices, the leader of the Bodhisattvas of the earth. Now, if you remember when we were in the Supernatural Powers chapter and we read, I read the synopsis of it, he talked about these 4 things I'm going to read now, and they were never even mentioned when the Daishonin went through the Supernatural Powers chapter. okay, which I thought was very interesting. But now he brings them back in. And with the quotation from the supernatural powers is the passage that reads, "To put it briefly, all the doctrines possessed by the thus come one, all the freely exercised supernatural powers of the thus come one, the storehouse of the secret essentials of the thus come one, all of the most profound matters of the thus come one, all of these are proclaimed, revealed, and clearly expounded in this sutra." Okay, that was the important message that he conveyed to his followers in the supernatural powers chapter. All right, and he says that the 10 types of supernatural summarized. Then in the supernatural powers chapter, Shakyamuni Buddha demonstrated 10 types of supernatural powers, summarized the teachings of the 4 pronouncements, which I just read that to you, and in this way entrusted the teachings to Bodhisattva superior practices, the leader of the Bodhisattvas of the earth. What was transmitted at that time, this is a very important sentence, so underline it. What was transmitted at that time was the wonderful law, the title of the sutra. You should keep in mind that there are distinctions between the general transmission of the sutra made outside the treasure tower as described in the entrustment chapter, and the specific transmission made within the tower as depicted in the supernatural powers chapter. Thus, the transmission ceremony that began in the treasure tower chapter with the teaching to be transmitted, and the person to whom it is transferred revealed in the emerging from the earth and lifespan chapters, which is whom? Plural. The original teacher and his disciples, which manifest as Nichiren Daishonin and his disciples, the Bodhisattvas of the earth, right? With the teaching to be transmitted, and the person to whom it is transferred revealed in the emerging from the earth, okay, which would be the Bodhisattvas of the earth, and the original teacher, the Buddha, the original Buddha, Nichiren, in the lifespan chapter, the thus Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, thus come one, okay, and is brought to a conclusion in the supernatural powers chapter and entrustment chapters. Okay, do you understand? So, everybody that was in the former and the middle day was there for the entrustment chapter. They were there till the end. Okay? Because everybody else went back to their own worlds. Okay? In chapter 24. Okay? In chapter 23, the Bodhisattvas of the earth all departed. Right? But the rest of the assembly stayed. And all the other entities that were from various other places in the universe than Earth that had come to hear the Lotus Sutra, right? They all split. And the only people that were left were the people that were on the ground in the first place. Then it all got raised up into the air, and all these other dudes showed up. Then everybody else that showed up split. And once that they were all gone, it came back down to Earth again. That's the end of the ceremony in the air. All right? Okay. And we start chapter 24. And I know we're running out of time.
2 hours.
I know we're already at 2 hours. I'm at almost done.
Yes.
It is what it is.
Okay.
Where?
The last paragraph.
Yeah.
Huh?
The last one. This passage.
Okay, these passages in the supernatural powers chapter are stated clearly and emphatically that with regard to the 5 characters Myoho Renge-kyo in the latter day of the law, when the pure law of Shakyamuni Buddha has passed into extinction. That's what I was saying, underline this, okay? These passages in the supernatural powers chapter are stated clearly and emphatically that with regard to the 5 characters Myoho Renge-kyo in the latter day of the law, when the pure law of Shakyamuni Buddha has passed into extinction, Bodhisattva superior practices will appear in the world to proclaim them, and of the 5 types of practice advocated by Shakyamuni to accept and uphold, to read, to recite, to explain and preach, and to copy the Lotus Sutra. We'll explain that only the first to accept and uphold the sutra is to be practiced as the way to attain Buddhahood. This is what the Supernatural Powers chapter means when it says, therefore, a person of wisdom, after I have passed into extinction, should accept and uphold this sutra. Such a person assuredly and without a doubt will attain the Buddha way. The meaning of this passage is perfectly obvious. Hence, we traditionally refer to this passage as the statement of the Buddha, in which he transfers his merit to the upholders of the sutra. Okay, did you all clearly understand that? You want me to go through it quickly? I can, but do you understand what he just said? No, let me say it again then, all right? I know we're late. The passage is in the Supernatural Powers chapter stating clearly and emphatically that with regard to the 5 characters Myoho Renge-kyo in the latter day of the law, which is now, right? When the pure law of Shakyamuni Buddha has passed into extinction, so nothing that Shakyamuni said matters anymore,
Right.
all right? Bodhisattva superior practices, Nichiren Daishonin manifesting as Nichiren Daishonin, Bodhisattva superior practices, manifesting as Nichiren Daishonin, will appear in the world to proclaim them, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and the 5 types of practice advocated by Shakyamuni, which he tells us. We have to accept his teaching. We have to uphold his teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. We have to read his teaching. We have to recite it to others. We have to explain it to others, and we teach others. We don't teach them everything Shakyamuni said.
No.
Okay, so there's a whole complete distinction between us and Shakyamuni's time.
Exactly.
All right? All right. This is what the Supernatural Powers chapter means when it says, therefore, a person of wisdom. Now, who's a person of wisdom?
Nature.
Me and you. Each one of us is a person of wisdom because we chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo.
Yeah.
Therefore, a person of wisdom who embraces the great pure law, after I have passed into extinction, should accept and uphold this sutra as the basis of the great pure law, how to understand and guide others toward it. Okay, such a person will assuredly and without doubt will attain the Buddha way. They will definitely attain Buddhahood in their present form. Okay, the meaning of this passage is perfectly obvious. Hence, we traditionally refer to this passage as the statement of the Buddha, in which he transfers his merit as the Buddha to the upholders of the sutra, who are also Buddhas. We're bodhisattvas of the earth. We are his original disciples. You think we still didn't get the point? You think he entrusted this sutra to us to go teach it if we don't already understand and live it, aren't reflective of it? Okay, no. So we already have done all that. Okay? For this reason, the attitude of mind of one who accepts and upholds this sutra is what is meant by this sutra is that of the nyo as of the phrase practice it as the Lotus Sutra, as the sutra instructs. If one uses this attitude of mind to reverently accept and uphold the 5 characters of Myoho Renge-kyo, chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo at once, the illnesses of ignorance and earthly desires will all depart, and one will emerge clothed in the shining flesh of perfect enlightenment and the ultimate reward, that of being able to be the Buddha and overcome any problem in every lifetime that comes after. That is why this word ko, or departed, has been placed at the very conclusion of the sutra. It is in effect an explanation of the words that preceded, accepting and uphold the words of the Buddha. Okay? Chapter 28. Did you understand that? That is why it's departed. You left your old 6th path life behind. You've now entered the 4 higher realms. You'll never go back to the hell of the 6. Okay? All right. That is why the word ko, or departed, has been placed at the very conclusion of the sutra. It is in effect an explanation of the words that preceded, accepting and upholding the words of the Buddha, chapter 28. Even the devil kings, the asuras, with their earthly desires coming out their ears, and evil enlightenment, their cleverness on how to take advantage of others, When the light of the true aspect of phenomena shines on them, will gain a kind of penetrating insight that allows them to perceive that their bodies and minds are at a single moment pervade the entire Dharma realm. They will become Buddhas exactly as they are, even though they've been evil up until that moment. When that happens, they will, contrary to their usual practices, bow in obeisance to the Buddha who is in their minds and never forget their debt of gratitude. Because when you come from that life condition all the way to that life condition, you are humbled and grateful. Okay? That is why the sutra says they bowed in obeisance and departed. One should recall in this context the passage of commentary, volume 5 of the annotations on Great Concentration Insight that reads, so that would be Myola speaking about Tiantai, about the Makashikan, that reads, all the 3,000 conditions of this or that person permeate one another in this way. But treat all this as secret because it's too heavy. Have you seen what it's taken me to try to explain this? That's why he's saying, somebody that really wants to understand and wants to attain Buddhahood in their present form has to understand this. If it's time for them to understand and they come with a seeking spirit, lay this on them. But don't pull this out and go, let me teach you the real shit from the very beginning, because he already qualified back here that it will be taught that just to accept and uphold it will be enough somewhere, right? He's not going to ask for them to recite and did. It's somewhere in there. If you go back, you'll see what I just said. He says in the latter day it'll be a different way. But treat this, all of this as secret. Treat this as secret. It is something to be transmitted from teacher to disciple only, which is the only reason I'm telling you guys, not to be talked of with outsiders, which was my reluctance to even read the OTT online. Okay? The ultimate view of the teachings handed down with regard to the word ko or departed then is that ko represents the ko or departure of the departure that never departs. How cool is that? That's our lives. Departure that never departs.
That's right.
Temporary existence over and over and over and over eternally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.